We are in the thick of the college fantasy football season. Week 8 is upon us. The playoff pictures are starting to line up in our leagues, and it's time to make that big push forward. So we have 5 more players who are going to help you win your fantasy football championships. Before we get into those guys, let's take a moment and look at a big week 7 for us. The tight end train continues to hit as Taylor Thompson out of JMU puts up 13.8 fantasy points. He was featured on the waivers pick video last week. John, the video did well, but my goodness, did John's patron only sleeper article hit for folks. Wide receiver Dane Key, 22 fantasy points. Running back, wide receiver eligible Avery Morrow, 25 fantasy points, including a nice 25 fantasy points for me in a victory over John this past week. All right. Quarterback Haj-Malik Williams was featured in the written article last week, 33.8 fantasy points. And running back Braden Sloan, 23.7 fantasy points. So a big week 7, John. Let's roll right into it here. Week 8. And we're going to talk about Haj-Malik Williams a little bit more because folks still aren't catching on.
Matt, what do we have to do to get him on 70% of CFF rosters? I was shocked when I noticed he was only on 28%. Since Matt Sluka left the program, Haj-Malik Williams is now the starter, and he's unlocked wide receiver Ricky White. And I'm very grateful for that because I have a lot of Ricky White in my best ball and season-long leagues, so that's very nice to see. Matt, all he's done since he took over the job, 43 fantasy points, 38 fantasy points, 34 fantasy points.
Yeah, not
what
bad.
Makes him super special is his ability to run the football, Matt. He's very good with the ball in his hands on the ground. I don't really know where the disconnect is from the fantasy audience right now. He has 325 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. And Matt, he's efficient throwing the football. 642 yards. Okay, that's not great, but he's a dual threat. He's completing 77% of his passes and 9-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Matt, he should be on 70%. And I'll say this, my leagues, he's not available in one anymore. And he even went off when Sluka left the program. I saw 2 owners jumped right in. I was just looking around and they got him. So people, go get Haj-Malik Williams. I've lost a few games to opponents with him already. Go get him.
Yeah, the Sharps knew about Haj-Malik Williams from Campbell, right? We had him locked in from the Camels. We're going to put him on the cover, John, of this week's video. We're going to get that roster percentage up because we can't keep talking about him, but we have to at 28% roster. All right, let's get into the running back position. I'm going to go Delbert Mims III, playing for Eastern Michigan, transferred in from North Carolina State. He's rostered in just 8% of leagues, but John, what do I look for each and every week? I sound like a broken record. Volume. That's what I'm looking for on the waiver wire. And Mims has 43 carries over the last 2 weeks for Eastern Michigan, 233 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns in just the last 2 games. He's got at least 1 touchdown in every game this season since week 2. And what do we have here? A beautiful mid-season max schedule lineup, right? This is the time of the year, folks. You fade your MAC players early as they play in those cash games. They get beat up, make $1 million each. Sometimes like NIU, you get a victory, right? But we really want these guys for this part of the season. Mims has Central Michigan and Akron up next.
Woo-hoo!
And then you have to start thinking about those playoff pushes, right? If you have the ability to do so, even if you don't need a running back right now, you've got a super easy schedule for weeks 12 through 14. Ohio, Buffalo, Western Michigan. We're looking at a high volume running back. We're looking at a guy who finds the end zone. And he's rostered in just 8% of leagues.
And I'm going to dare to say, Matt, that the Mac is back. Maction action is coming this season. There's a lot of good fantasy numbers in the conference, and it was a down year. So I'm very excited. A lot of these players are on the waiver wires. I like Mims myself. Let's stay in the backfield. It might not be as tasty overall as last week, but there are players here, and I think it's worth mentioning Tawee Walker. At this point in the season, a starting running back for the Wisconsin Badgers, Matt, should not be available in over 60% of leagues. It just cannot happen. The Badgers feed their stud running backs. If you look, even before Chaz Malusi left the program, in the last game in which the two of them were together, Tawee had 12 carries, 55 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He scored 17.5 fantasy points. But, Matt, since then, he is just being fed at the buffet of carries. 19 and 24, 94 and 198 yards rushing, 6 total touchdowns in those 2 games. That is 3 consecutive games of 39, 27, and 17 fantasy points. My friends, if you're looking for a playoff push, if you're looking for volume, Walker is your guy this late in the season. I don't know why he's sitting out there. You got to go get him.
All right, we're going to go back at it here to the tight end position. You know I had to do it. Before I talk about Jack Endries, though, I want to take a moment here. I just want to let folks know this advice we're giving out each and every week. Me and John are going and getting these guys. Like, these are the actual players we're going after on the waiver wire. And just a quick anecdote here. In the Kings Classic, which you all saw us live draft these teams against some of the sharpest players in the country, it's a doubleheader schedule. Through the first 5 weeks, every single week, 1 win, 1 loss for me, 5-5. The last 2 weeks, 4-0. This last week, I scored the highest amount of points in the league. John, I just double-checked. 5 of the players in my starting lineup this past week were players that we have talked about on this show. They're helping me win games against the sharpest of the sharps, right? So I'm hoping it's helping folks in the same way in their leagues. But on top of those waiver picks, if you want help with your start-sit questions, if you want help with your trade questions, drop them in. We're trying to help you build these championships. It's not just about our runs here. It's about your championship runs as well. That being said, we're hot on the tight end track, so we're doubling down. Jack Endries, tight end out of Cal. 8 receptions on 8 targets this past week against Pitt. 119 yards, and he found the end zone. On the season, he has 19 receptions on 20 targets. I had to double check this stat. Fantastic stat right there. And he has a touchdown in each of the last 2 games. He's got 2 touchdowns on the season, but 1 each of the last 2 games. His targets are progressively increasing. It's clear that Cal wants to continue to feature Endries. And I talked about it. I'm looking ahead a little bit. The schedule's not bad for Endries, the next couple weeks. That's not why I skipped it. But look ahead. Wake, Hughes, Syracuse, Stanford, SMU. That's a pretty nice finish of the season for an ACC tight end. There's a lot to like here with Jack Endries, and he's rostered in just 19% of leagues.
Woo, I know I always need tight ends. I'm dumpster diving a lot, but I have a lot of teams, but I don't have any stud except for, I guess I have, why can't I remember the TCU, the Tito. Yeah. So he's the only guy, the only team I have him on. I'm happy there. So I use our tight ends because it works. Hey, you get double-digit points at the tight end, Matt. It's huge.
Oh, yeah.
And our last player tonight is a player that I got on, I think, nearly every best ball team that I have because he was like a 20-round pick. And sometimes, Matt, it was like 24th round, and we do 30, 35-round drafts. There he is. It's Antonio Williams of Clemson. No one wanted him in the offseason. He's still wildly available now. And here's what's happening lately. His target share is going up. He is their best receiver. And Matt, I can't believe I'm saying it. I'm a believer in Cade Klubnik. He's playing good football, everyone. I mean, really good football. And in the last 4 games, Antonio Williams has 18.9, 8.9, 21, and 26 fantasy points. Now, he's not going to be your explosive, 130-yard guy with maybe 12 catches. That's not his game in this offense. But Matt, look at week 8 and 9 and 10 for buys coming up. Even week 7, you need a flex or a third wide receiver. Antonio Williams has got a really nice floor. You're looking at 12 or 13 points. You might get that ceiling of 21, 22. I don't know why he's sitting out there. I've been playing him. He's a good player. Don't worry about what he did in the past. He's healthy, and Klubnik's playing well.
Yeah, he's clearly the wide receiver 1 on that Clemson offense. Yeah. So he is certainly a player to be excited about. Just like our other 4 guys here. Hopefully these 4 will help you in your push to win that college fantasy football championship. Feel free to drop those start sit questions, trade questions, any college fantasy football questions in the comment. Give the video a like, and we appreciate you checking out this episode of the Rookie Big Board.